Moed, Umlen Ablat Gemara. Today's daf is daf Yud Aleph. This is for Shabbos. And then we'll take a pause and we'll learn daf Yud Beis, which is Sundays. Yom Tiv daf Yomi. We're up to actually daf Yud Beis, the very last few words. We're continuing to discuss the laws of Ari Miklat. Amar Abchama Chanina. Why, when it was introduced to Yeshua, did Hashem use the word Vayedaber, which is a very strong, harsh word? You have Vayemer and Vayedaber. Vayemer is considered much softer, and Vayedaber is much harsher. Where do you see that receive? Because it says in Pasuk, Vayedaber Hashem Yeshua Lemer. Hashem spoke to Yeshua the following words: Daber bnei Yisrael Lemer, and he tells them what? I want you to provide the cities, the three cities of Miklat, on top of what Moshe Rabbeinu did in Transjordan, Eber Yarden. So why did he introduce it with the word Vayedaber? So we answer, because he's giving him instructions. Because he's giving him instructions what to do, a mitzvah the Torah Vayedaber. Everywhere else was telling him things, but here, as Yeshua was told, a mitzvah the Torah, it's a Vayedaber. Remember the whole dibur lashon kasher. So you're telling me the word dibur whenever it says Vayedaber, it's harsh. Tomorrow says yes, kidduchsib. Because there's a clear passage where it says, Diber ish adonai haaretz, the person spoke, the master of the land, itana with us, cautious, harsh words. So we see that what? The brothers were telling over to Yaakov about Yosef. So we see that Diber is a term used when they're talking about harsh words. Says the Gemara, but Tanya, we learned elsewhere in another passage that it says Nidbaru. It says in Malachi, Nidbaru Hashem. And it says that Isha Eyu, they will speak to each other and they'll listen. And Hashem will write down recorded memories in memory. So L'chayda Nidbaru sounds like a softer. Ein Nidbar Loshan Nachas Kam. B'chein Oimer, it says in Pasuk, Yadber Amim Tachtenu. And it will speak the nations below us. And again, so we answer, there's a difference between Dibur and Yadber. Dibur is harsh, and Yadber might be soft. What I find very difficult to understand, and I didn't really say before I should talk about it, is Rashi in the very end of Tainus says, Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem didn't speak to Moshe Rabbeinu for 38 years while he was in the wilderness because all the Eden were dying out because of Chetam Meraglim. It was only after the last ones passed away that David spoke to him again. And there it says, Vayedaber. And Rashi says that Ein Vayedaber Ela Loshen Chiba. Vayedaber is a term of endearment. Yet our Gemara here, Makos Daf says that it's Vayedaber is generally a harsh word. And Rashi Chumash throughout says Vayedaber is harsh word. I'm not sure how you reconcile these two Gemaras. Study more further. Pligiba, so there's an argument between we're bringing different arguments of Yehuda. First of all, let's start with here. Why was Hashem harsh? He's giving him the laws of Ari Miklat. He delayed it. He waited 14 years, the 7 years of war of conquest, and 7 years of division of the land before he made the Ari Miklat, and that's why Hashem was angry. Now, why should he be angry? The Mephoshim Masker, the Abishah said that they won't function until they settle in the land, and settling takes 14 years. So they want to say true, but Moshe Rabbeinu went ahead and he set aside the 3 Ari Miklat, even though it wouldn't function at all until Yeshua conquered the land. Yet if you have an opportunity to start a mitzvah, you're supposed to initiate the mitzvah straight away. And that's why Hashem was angry with Yeshua, that he was not unlike his Rebbe. He waited until the last moment, until when it had to happen. He should have done it earlier. And the Chadam, another semination Torah, and the other one says it's because it's the Torah, it's a law of the Torah. Yeshua, another argument says Yeshua said, we have an argument. We have the Gemara in the first page of Basa, an argument, but when it says Yeshua wrote these words in the Sefer of Hashem, which words did he write? The last 8 psukim of the Torah, which begins by Yamas Moshe couldn't have written it, as the Gemara asked about Basa. And Moshe wrote it. So Yeshua wrote the last 8 psukim, and that's why the din of the last 8 psukim is different than the rest of the Torah, that Yochid Koidem, according to that you don't give it an aliyah, or you don't divide the pasha, or you don't need a minyan. different pshatim and others pshatim there, so that's what it means. And the Chadam, the other one says Orei Miklat, that Yeshua wrote the laws of Orei Miklat. Bishlam Adam Chatzuk in the eight psukim it says in the Sefer of Torah Zolakim because he wrote the last eight psukim of the Torah. The Madam Orei Miklat, the one says Orei Miklat. My Sefer Torah Zolakim, what do you mean in the Sefer Torah Zolakim? That's what it meant. But Yichtav Yeshua B'Sifra, Yeshua wrote in his Sefer that he recorded in Yeshua words that were already given to us in Chumash, in the Torah. One more machlekes. A sefer Torah should follow the pishton that you use to put together the parchments, the different klafim. You put it together with the pishton flax. He's pligi but Rabbi Meir. So I'm Rabbi Meir. That's good enough. Chadam, one of them says kosher. One of them says it's kosher. Chadam apostle. Lemandam apostle. Why say apostle? You see, it says lemanti Torah Hashem bepicha, that the Torah of Hashem should be able to go in your mouth and want to be iskish kol Torah kula tefillin. And we compare the entire Torah tefillin because it says by tefillin also Torah Hashem. So because it says that by tefillin lemanti Torah Hashem bepicha, we compare the Torah to tefillin. What do you know about tefillin? The mat tefillin Allah Mashin the Torah from the beginning has to be used sinus. I've called it Torah from the beginning. You have to use only sinus. So therefore, we make like Shava. That's why I say Torah as well. Either the other holds no. When that pasuk is only to tell you that you have to use the hide of a kosher animal. Of these details that you learn to say that isn't included. Amar Rav said Chazin l'tefillin v'chabibi. I once saw the tefillin my uncle Rav Chia. The tefillin bekisle. The tefillin was sewn together with kisle, with flax. But and the halacha is not like him. Actually, the Meforshim have a hard time understanding because tefillin, everyone agrees, has to be done with sinus. We just says Allah Ma'asina, the argument we're going to say for Torah. And yet, Rav is talking about his uncle doing the tefillin. How can that be? So therefore, it's a difficulty. Oh, we're up to the Mishnah here. Okay, continue that view the Aleph. Now we'll continue with the person who will not end up not a miklat. When does he go free? So we say that when the Kohen Gadol passes away, he goes free. Now there are different kinds of Kohen Gadol. First of all, till Yeshio, they used to anoint the Kohen Gadol with oil. After Yeshio, when he hid the oil together with the Aron and all that, and the Chayshim Mishpat, he was the only one who wore 8 clothes. He was a Kohen Gadol. Then you have a Kohen Meshuach Sha'ava. You have a Kohen Sha'ava means if the Kohen Gadol was not well, and he couldn't perform, another one steps into his place, especially on Kippur, steps into his shoes. But then when the Kohen Gadol recuperates, that other Kohen Gadol is sort of in no man's land. He's a past Kohen Gadol. So he says, Echad Meshuach B'Shemen HaMishkan, whether you anointed with oil, the Echad Amaruba Begadim, whether you're the Kohen Gadol after post Yeshio, we're learning now the way Rashi learns, post Yeshio, which he wore 8 clothes, the Echad Sha'ava Meshichusa, that he used to be a Kohen Gadol, Machzin Zatzech, any of them, if they pass, we'll soon see if you need all 3 or just one, pass away, the Zatzech is set free. Rabbi Yehuda says, I also include, there was a special Kohen Gadol, his job was to go out there and to, when they go to the war, he should give them a pep talk and warnings. Even he is considered a Kohen Gadol, that if he dies, the person leaves the mikvot. Sorry?
Only when they're active, replacing Kohen Gadol.
So, good question, but Moshe Sha'aba is definitely not active, and yet it still works. Meshuach Kohen Gadol means he was a Kohen Gadol, he's no longer a Kohen Gadol, and yet it works. Exactly. But once you're in that position, for the mothers of the Kohanim, it didn't suit the Kohanim themselves, but the mothers were very concerned about the physical welfare of their children. Because we go to the Orei Miklat and provide everybody with clothing and everything else, to prevent them from davening that their son should die. They're all davening their Kohen should die, so they can go free. Says the Gemara, how do you know the pasuk? It says in pasuk, how long should he sit there? He should sit there Mois Kohen Gadol, until the Kohen Gadol dies. That's possible. So no, we're going to have 3 different psukim saying the same thing, and that's how we know that 3 different Kohanim possible. See, if it says until the Kohen Gadol dies. See, in the third pasuk, after the Kohen Gadol dies, he is set free. But Rabbi Yehuda, where does he get the fourth one from? Siv Kros another pasuk. Achin is another pasuk where it says that he should run to the mikvot ad mois hakoyin, and referring to Abba Kohen Gadol. And so he said, and why he doesn't say the word Gadol? Because he's a Kohen Mashuach, which is a much lower, status. The Idach and the first Talmud, like Siv Hagadol Chad Mahanachu, refers back to one of those earlier three. The Fichach might say in Shakayin time, it seems from here that they were worried that these people are going to die, that they're going to daven that their son, the Kohen Gadol, will die. What, you think it will be effective? Time of the they wouldn't daven. How matzl ma'isa? What, because they daven, you think the Kohen Gadol will die because these people are davening he should die? Look, see, it says a posik, katzipol lanud kedroi lauf. So Cain kill chinam loy tobe. Somebody makes just like a bird fly away. Just like if you make empty clothes we have no basis, don't mean anything. So Amalei was so pick it up Shmili. I heard Mishiva Rabba Shahayla and Lavak is Achmad Dain Labikshur. They're not so faultless because they should have davened that in their door. There shouldn't be a shaygix. They cannot daven maybe on mazes because people have an option. People have an option. You chose, you did, but a shaggy means you didn't really know what you were doing. So it's clear that the Abishter made it happen. So therefore, the Kohen Gadol should have davened that this should never have happened. The others have a different guess. Not in a passive way, don't daven against our son, but it actually prompt them in a positive way. Daven, our son should be healthy and live a long life. Time of the matzah sounds like the only reason why the son will live well, healthy, because they daven the matzah ma'aser, but they wouldn't daven the son. What do they need the davening for? What are they coaxing them to daven for the son? My have a little mevid. Why should the kohen? Why shouldn't he have a normal life? Why should his life be curtailed? Over here we say the expression is tuvia chota v'zigud menagit. We had this expression in the Psachim where an Eid Echa came to a Papa and told him something happened, some lewd event. That Papa gave him Malchus. So the guy said, hey, Tuvia said, I came to you, I told you a mice about Tuvia that he sinned, and his name was Zigud. And Zigud Menagan, you give me Petch, you give me Malchus. And the reason is, he says, Lashon Hara. One Eid can't do anything, and all you did was you tried to give credibility to your story. Or Hoshmam, another thing is Shchem Nazir. Shchem wanted to marry Dina, and Umechanoi Nazir, Gazir. And Mechanoi is the name of some individual there. God has to cut himself to a bris milah. He benefits, and I have to hurt myself. Same thing over here. What do you want from the Kohen Gadol? Oh, who's going to pick it up? Shemir, I heard Shahayla Levakish Achmad Doidam V'le Big Shoe. They should have davened on their door, and they didn't daven on their door. He heard that who gave the person was a person that a lion ate him up 12 kilometers away, 3 parsa from Rabbi Shmuel's place. He didn't talk to him for 3 days. You should daven that there shouldn't be accidents around you. The klala of a chacham, even the chinam, even let's say never happens, never eventuates. Nevertheless, whatever the ground for the klala never eventuate. Nevertheless, the klala still happens. Never, yeah. So the Gemara. How you know that? We had this name of Sukkah. She's saying David and Melech wanted to build, the base of Migdash and the Kodesh Kedoshim should be connected all the way down to the very bottom of the world. So he made these, he's digging these holes, and then Kofa Tahim, he hit the Tahim, the bottom source of water. The time threatened to drown the entire world. Rashi says that they bring some Yerushalmi that there was a piece of clay sitting on top of the water, and the clay screamed out to David Melech, "Don't take me from it! Don't remove me from this spot here, because I am here as a seal on the time. From the day the Matan Torah happened, I became the seal of time." And David refused to listen and took it off, and then suddenly water was going everywhere and threatened to drown the whole world. Is Maul with the shame Achaspa. He asked, "Can I write the name on a piece of clay, and I'll throw it down there with the water will probably get erased. The lake Aduchta, and it should cover the water." Nobody wants to say anything. David asked, "Anybody know the halach?" Now, the reason why some first say the reason why Dover Mel didn't want to pass himself is because Achitayfel was there, and Achitayfel was Dover Mel's teacher. They didn't want to pass him Mokum Rav. So he said, "I'm not calling it. Whoever doesn't tell me is going to strangle, die for strangulation." By a Satan, we would break Abel's name. The whole world is being threatened, not just a Shalom Bais of one family. Surely should be allowed. On Malay, Shadi allowed to. Kosev Shem Achaspel, they wrote the name on a piece of clay. Shadi at threw in the time Nochas, and the water went back, receded. But you see, what was the end of the Lucheda? Achetevel gave him the psak. Yes, Achetevel Rocky, Loinasa, so didn't work out as a plan with Absalom. By Yachbash as a Hamar, he saddled his own donkey, by Yocham Echabesa, a leader, by Tal Besa, and he strangled himself. So that's what, unfortunately, I have a hard time understanding of the Chayda, Pikuach Nefesh. What was the Shaila? If Pikuach Nefesh individual is difficult to call, imagine Pikuach Nefesh of the whole world. What was the Shaila? Possibly one shot, not the unfortunate answer is, because this is different, because you put yourself in that position. The voice that Rashi says that the Chedatom don't remove me. And he did. So maybe in that case where you put yourself in a situation, who said you're laughing? Not that. But why should the rest of the world suffer? But please explain why Don Mel couldn't pass him, because he himself was in a different position. Others want to say he thought that erasing Hashem's name, because is like Avodah Zarah, and by Avodah Zarah we don't say Pekuach Nefesh Doichid, those are the three Averis that we say that you're not allowed to die for, that you're not allowed to be over, and maybe he thought that's what it is. Others want to bring a riot from here that what do you call it? I'll come back to it. Amr was a kilo chacham tonight who bought, and the chacham makes a klala even at night. It happens. Another maybe learn from Eli. The Kamala Eli Shmuel. Eli said to Shmuel, "I know you had a chol last night. You better reveal to me exactly. I don't care, if it hurts me. Yeah, I need to tell me what it was." This was should happen to you even worse. Worse than what's happening to me. If you deny or hold back. Shmuel told him. It says clearly he didn't hold back anything. You see, it says that tonight the klala happened. If you put someone in the chedim al tonight, tzarich hafara. If you put a chedim on a tonight, and even though the tonight was carried properly, nevertheless you need a hafara. And Tracy explains, what do you mean? People make tonight all the time, and a neder and shua, and the tonight. If this happens or kedushin, and we learned the whole time, and the tonight, if you met the condition of the tonight, then no problem. Why over here you still need hafara? So Tracy wants to say that over here the difference if we're talking about a case here, like the case of Yehuda when he told Yaakov, as we learn at Minolan, Yehuda the Chsiva says, I don't bring my yamin to you, I'll forfeit my chelik, and so on. And and we'll see in a minute that Yehuda Taka happened. Moshe Rabbeinu has daven for him. But in the case of Yehuda, he didn't. When he made the Tanai, he wasn't in control. Did he know that Pari would release Binyamin? Did he know how, or Yosef? Did he know how it was going to turn out? He had no idea how it was going to turn out, and therefore therefore says Tosis, there was only a Tanai man and a subject, which means the Tanai wasn't real, and that's why the Kola happened. But if you make a Tanai, which I have a control, if I do this, if you give me this, if I do this, I'll go here. You're in control, as much as you can be in control. Then the Tanai is Mekayim. Then others want to say, interesting, based on the medrash, that Yehuda never fulfilled the Tanai. He never brought Binyamin back because Yaakov didn't believe Yosef was alive. Okay, he didn't believe the other sons because they sold Yosef, but why didn't you just ask Binyamin? So they say in the medrash that Binyamin stayed behind with Yosef. They didn't bring Binyamin back. Yaakov went to see Binyamin in Mitzrayim, but Binyamin never came back home. So he never fulfilled the Tanai. The Tanai was, if I don't bring him back, Im lo have Yosef. And he never did. That's what other Shayman says. What's the story with you? The Reuben should live. The Al Yamas, what means Reuben Al Yamas? So the Pshat is Moshe Rabbeinu said, then it said the next part, was like, then Yehuda, how does Yehuda come to, what's the juxtaposition between Yehuda and Binyamin? But in all those 40 years, his body, his bones were not together. Who caused Reuben to be made? Yehuda. When Reuben saw Yehuda, asking forgiveness from Tamar, so he was inspired to do it to himself. V'zois Yehuda, and this is Yehuda. And then he says, Shema Hashem Kol Yehuda. Listen to the Shema Hashem Kol Yehuda. Hear the sound of Yehuda, voice of Yehuda. When he said that, all the bones went back to their places. Okay, he's back together in one piece, but didn't allow him to the Shifshirakia, to the Yeshiva. So then Moshe made David Amid to the end and bring him back to his people, bring him back to Gan Eden. He couldn't argue with them. He felt inferior. Then he said, Yodel Ravloy, let him be strong. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying it. He didn't know how to answer questions. Let him be helped from all of his oppressors. He said, Reuben, the story happened. He did his tshuva from Maisa Bila before the Maisa with Yehuda. So Teresa says true. He did tshuva before, but when did he make it public? Only after he saw that Yehuda wasn't ashamed to say that he, like the Chatasi and they did tshuva. So then, so that was inspiration. My question is, says Gemara, you have to wait till all three kohanim going to die, or any one of them. So Shema Nigmar Dina Beloy Kohen Gadol, and the next mission says if he was Mardin and the Kohen Gadol was not alive at the time, he does not ever leave a miklat. The Misa Lahadav Lahanach, let him leave with the other ones. So this Kohen Gadol, but there's a Kohen Meshuach, Shavar. So what if who cares if Kohen Gadol wasn't? There was no Kohen Gadol at the time when he was in court with the Leka. So that's what maybe there were nobody else. They all died. They didn't get to replace them with anyone else. So the Gemara remains with 8 Tzadikiyah. The problem they all have now with Rashi is Rashi said there's not really 3 kohanim. There's 2 kohanim doilim, but one is before they had smeared oil, and before Yoshio, and the other one was post Yoshio, and just had Merubah. So that's when it's all 3. How can you have 3 ever at the same time? So I remember not seeing it here, but somewhere else. So the pshat is that the Kohen Gadol, if the Kohen Gadol before Yoshio was still there, but let's say he was a Balmum or something, he could no longer service. And then you got a new Kohen Gadol now. The new Kohen Gadol is merely Merubah Begadim. So you can have both. Mishnah. Mishnah Nigmadin, Mas Kohen Gadol. What happens after the Gemar Din? The Kohen Gadol passed away. Harez in a Goyla. Then you don't need to go to Golis. But soon say, how do we know that? Luchai didn't spend any time in Golis. As long as there was a Gemar Din, once Bezin ruled that he has to go to a miklat, and then the Kohen Gadol dies, he's free. Imagine but if before the Gemar Din, the Kohen Gadol died, so the Bezin, then even though he killed the person by accident while in the reign of the Kohen Gadol, and then replaced him with somebody else. And then afterwards, the Gemar Din. In this case, don't say that you go out free already. No, your Gemar Din was the second Kohen Gadol. That's the Kohen Gadol that has to die. At the time of Gemar Din, there was no Kohen Gadol. It was hated. Or a hoided Kohen Gadol. You killed the Kohen Gadol. Or Kohen Gadol Shahada, Kohen Gadol was killed. You never go out. There's a machlekes a shayna that says la'olam. It means he never goes out, or he has to wait for the new Kohen Gadol to be appointed, and then that Kohen Gadol, when he dies, he goes free. So I think the Rambam says that he does go out eventually, if I remember something right. Even the entire Jewish nation needs him, we don't let him out. Why don't you let him out? Because there's a mitzvah that say that he has to remain in Orah Miklat. Why don't even Yoav if Yoav is in the Orah Miklat, he deserves to be in Orah Miklat. If the Klal Yisrael needs him, he's such an able general, we don't care. She never says I should know Shama, Sham Tehitir us, Sham Tehim Misasha, Sham Tehim us. That's where he should remain. The question that all Mepharshim ask is, the Kuach Nefesh Kol Kula. We need Yoav to save Klal Yisrael. No, he has to stay there. What does that mean? And he'll even say. Also, what about the Asay of Kiddush HaChodesh? Why did I push away the Asay of staying there? So for that answer, there's a number of Asays written that you should stay in the Orah Miklat. But some of the Rishonim say that the reason why he does not leave the Orah Miklat is because he's putting his life in danger. Because now the Goyal Adam, because remember the Goyal Adam, if you step outside the Orah Miklat, the Goyal Adam can kill you, and you don't have to put his life in danger. And here starts a big machlekes. There's a big machlekes in halacha and poskim if a suffix pekuach nefesh is deicha avad nefesh. If a suffix, if I'm going to endanger my life in order to save you, what am I supposed to do? So they want to bring a raya from here that this is the raya. Suffix pekuach nefesh is not deicha pekuach nefesh. Raya, we're telling you, saying over here, Yoav, don't leave him because he might get killed. That's what they want to say. Those who argue say it can't be the reason here, because the Bezdin could have just as well said, Girl Adam, you have no right to lock the Girl Adam up. They could have done something to save him, prevent him. That's what they argue. What is the raya that something is doicher? What is the raya? Okay, this is the raya not. That's not doicher. What's the raya that it is? From Esther Malka. Esther told Mordechai, you want me to go back on Australia? I don't know. I'm endangering my life. And yet, she went. Others ask no raya because that's Klal Yisrael, not for an individual. So the machlek is still rages. True, but regarding the general question, should I something if I can save your life, but it's on something and then your mind, what should I do? How many times do we hear about people who jump into the ocean to save somebody and they end up one passing away, dying? Telling the mission further. Just like the city of Miklat protects you, so too the Tchum protects as well. If the Retzech who steps outside the boundaries of the Tchum of the city, and the Goy Adam met him, that if you're stepping outside the Miklat, it's a mitzvah the Yad Goy Adam to kill him, and we should be able to. Anyone else, if they want to, they can. And Rabbi Akiva says Rishus b'yad goy adam, the chol adam chayav nulav. And Rabbi Akiva says Rishus b'yad goy adam, Rishus b'yad goy adam. You can take it Gemara in the other room. Oh, here, Gemara. Sorry. If you're out on base, we're just finishing the Mishnah. And Rabbi Akiva says Rishus b'yad goy adam. The goy adam has the Rishus to go ahead. No, it's optional for him. And the whole Adam Chayav Nulav. Anybody else doesn't have no right to. They kill him. They're Chayav for murder. However, the Rambam's gears, the other gears says the whole Adam ain't Chayav Nulav. In other words, you come here. Interesting idea. We normally translate as Rishus, meaning that no. It seems no. But we have here by lighting candles. You have this mitzvah. There's a chayiv. We have chayiv, mitzvah, and Rishus. It seems that Rishus is still a good thing. So the Rambam there says here, the Rishus is a good thing. So other people, even according to Rabbi Akiva says that Rishus b'yad goy adam. The goy adam has Rishus. So it's not a mitzvah, but it's still a good thing. And kol adam, for them, it's not a good thing either. What are you mixing in for? The whole thing was an accident anyway. But you're not chai for murder because that guy, killed someone at the end of the day. So interesting. We have another layer, and that's what it seems to be machlekes here. Whether there's is there anything below Rishus, or Rishus is the only thing there? Sorry. Yeah. So my time, what's the logic of the Gemara? He didn't go to Golus. What do you mean? The Kohen Gadol dies? Doesn't you already spent time in Golus. The Kohen Gadol dies. You step out. Now Misha loy Golus. If you didn't enter Golus in the first place. Einadin Shalayigala. Chulu shouldn't go in the first place because the Kohen Gadol died. Said you want to wait till I don't see the Kalachayva. Dilma Hai the Gala Ichbale. The guy spent some time in our Miklat, so he had a kapara. But Hai the Loy be there. Loy. But the other guy, he never stepped foot in our Miklat, didn't have any kapara. Said the Gemara here. Mide Golas Kamachapra, Mrs. Kohen who the Mechapra. It's not the Golas and Mrs. Kohen. Very problematic because we had that bait. So the Gemara clearly says here that a golus, the Ori Miklat, is not for kapara. The Kohen Gadol definitely kapara. So what's the Ori Miklat? A punishment, punitive. We had clearly in that base on the page, the Gemara says exactly the opposite. The Gemara says by Ein Zayim whether they should go to golus or not. And the Gemara says no. They knew they were lying and they deliberately did it. They shouldn't have to go to Golus. We don't want them to have a kapara. So is Golus a kapara or not? So some say, the Golus itself, it's the Mrs. Kohen Gadol. Others say no, it's definitely the Golus. The Golus is mechaper. So what does Mrs. Kohen Gadol do? The Mrs. Kohen Gadol stops the Goy Ladam. The kapara for your aveda is the Oremiklet. The stopping the Goy Ladam from taking revenge, that's the Misa of the Kohen Gadol. Or there's a Chilas kapara and Save kapara. Sorry? What do you mean?
You're going to dollars is what protects the ground from
Yeah, but it only protects you while you're in there. If you step out, it'll kill you. But the Misa Kohen Gadol allows you to leave them Orei Miklat, and the Gadol can't touch it anymore. So the Orei Miklat does not do that. It only protects you while you're inside. So there's a machlekes, the Ritva, and others, whether Golus is actually punitive or it's a mechaper. Talking about it further, imagine and if before the Gemar Din, the Kohen Gadol die, he doesn't help you. And I know that about Kana because I possibly Yeshua I might Kohen Gadol Hashem Moshe Chayse B'Shem LaKodesh. Until the Kohen Gadol died, that you anointed. He anointed. Possession of Yama means the Kohen Gadol was in your times, in the time when they sentenced you. Mahabel and Mevid. What do you want the Kohen Gadol? If the Kohen Gadol was not there, that was before we learned the Kohen Gadol. When you killed, the Kohen Gadol was alive. Okay, he should have davened that accidents like that shouldn't happen. But the Kohen Gadol was only appointed the day before you had the Gemar Din. What do you want the Kohen Gadol? Why? What's his death? How's it related? Malamevet. This is a very difficult Gemara to understand. So what do you want the Kohen Gadol to do? That he should daven that the Dayanim should make a mistake in the psak. What do you want him to do exactly? So we say Avina Malkeinu that the Eibush should find us, give us chusim. What do you mean? Either you have the chusim or you don't have the chusim. You want to distort the din. So what's pshat? What do you want the Kohen Gadol to daven? So what some want to say, the pshat is the Kohen Gadol should daven that the Eibush should be mechapid. If the whole thing of Golus is a kapara, if the whole thing of Golus is kapara, the Eibush should forgive him without going to Golus, and therefore he taka shouldn't go to Golus, and then they don't know pass him correctly. But if you learn Golus is punitive, what they learn the pshat is then the other way around. We learned before that Sanhedrin Shiro Kul L'Chayv, all the entire Sanhedrin sees this guy is a murderer, and he goes out free. Yad Paichel, I say, right? Set him free. So since this guy is punitive, and the guy is definitely guilty, I hope that all the Dayanim, all 23 Dayanim, rule that he is guilty of being a Shaygig, and therefore the halacha says he should be free. That's what he should have davened for. What about the Abaye? Very difficult thing. But why should intervene? You leave the business to their own operations. Amar Abaye says Abaye, like Tinan, we rule Nigma Dinah. The maze. What happens if the Ritzeach, as soon as the Gemar Din, he died? What's the point of going to the miklat? Nevertheless, my lichas, as Michael Sham bring his bones in the Chiv, it says, Lashon Lashav Bar that my Kohen Gadol should be there till the Kohen Gadol dies. Ve'ez yeshiva should be aretz, and which yeshiva is bar? However, is a quote. It says he should live there for like permanently. He should be buried there. So even if he died, we still bring to the miklat. What we learned, mes koidim shemes Kohen Gadol. If he died before the Kohen Gadol died, what happens? He died in the Orei Miklat. The Kohen Gadol is still alive. What do we do with his bones? First they bury him in the Orei Miklat, and after the Kohen Gadol died, they take his body and they move it to this other place. The Chassid says he should go back to his homeland. The din is once somebody's buried, you're not allowed to move him around, and the Bes Yosef a lot of paskins even from a bad place to a good place, you're not allowed to move anybody around unless you make a tanai. But then he talks about if all the properties belong to you and you want to get closer to your ancestors, you want to be buried alongside your ancestors, then zen no is good for the body. And where does he learn it from? They say that the makor for this is right here. The makor is, it says right here that once he's buried in Orei Miklat, if we take him from Orei Miklat, and once the Kohen Gadol dies, so he's allowed to leave, we take him out and bring him back to Avaisiv. Achlekes, by the way, it means you're allowed to, or is actually you have to, because no one's allowed to be buried in Orei Miklat soon see. But those who argue the Bes Yosef, they hold that no, that once you're interred, you're not allowed to move it, even if it's to be closer to your ancestors. They say that it's different here because since no one's allowed to be buried in Orei Miklat, it's as if it's tantamount to making a tanai that you're not going to be there permanently. Talking about it further, it's like those who want to go to Tisro, so they bury the body, they say, I'll pay tonight so we can make the arrangements and so on. Nigma Dino, let's say Mardin, Vanasa Koyin, interesting. The Gemar didn't happen, right? The Kohen Gadol was enforced and everything else. But then a month, 2 months later, or the next day, they found out the Kohen Gadol was never a kosher Kohen Gadol. And the same thing applies. He was ready in Orei Miklat for 10 years, and then they find out the Kohen Gadol was a ben chutza and so on. What happens then? Yeah. So ben grusha ben chalutza means that you're not functioning kohen gadol. The question is, now that we've established your ben grusha chalutza, is it retrospective, or is it only mekan haba? If it's retrospective, that means you never had a kohen gadol, that you're stuck. Like I said, the Mishnah, but if it's not retrospective from now on, okay, it's as if he died right now, and therefore you're free. So the Gemara is actually machlokes. The Kuna, he just died. You're free. No, but it's only possible from now on. About the Kuna, it's retrospective. It's now we learned. We learned a similar machlokes with a kohen. Was standing there and working, doing kabbanas. Suddenly, while he was in Mizbech, operating there, he found out he's ben Grusha is what happens. All the kabbanas he brought apostle. No, this is retrospective. And Abishua Machshi says, no, it's only from now on. Whatever he did, there's a cost, it's only from now on. Manda, so the Manda Mesa, so the one who says that as if the Kohen Gadol died right now, that means it's from now on. Can I be sure? Like Abishua said, from now on. Well, Manda a butler, it's never happened. It's Kabbalah, it's retrospective. Says the Gemara. Eliba Abelezer, who clearly says retrospective, there was no argument. It's retrospective, then the Kohen Gadol, you don't go out of our mikvah because you never had a Kohen Gadol. Keep legally Bishua. How do we understand Bishua? Man, I'm a Mesa Bishua. The one who said he died, he's like Bishua. The one who said that what? That the Kohen Gadol just died right now, goes like Bishua. It's only from now on. Or the man, I'm a butler. The one who said that it's retrospective, that is what? It's as if there's no Kohen Gadol at all. Very different than Kohen during Avodah. And why is that? It says in Pasuk there, it says, Baruch Hashem Chela, Hashem will bench your efforts, and whatever you achieve will be accepted. It's exactly I feel halal shabbat, even though it's halal. But in other cases, it's retrospective. Pause.